Hello and welcome back to the Society Knits YouTube channel. My name is Sally. I'm the owner and maker behind Society Knits, an Australian yarn and fibre store based in Wagga Wagga, New South Wales. Thank you for joining me again. It is so lovely to see all of the new faces, the people who've been leaving some lovely comments. It's been a little while since my last podcast, and that's because I had been waiting to get my things back from our recent ag show, so I could talk to you about a few finished objects and tell you how they went. I am currently coming to you from the lands of the Wiradjuri people. It is a beautiful spring day here in September 2025, and I'm very grateful to be here on these special lands. So, what have I been up to? I have been really busy with work and it's interfering with all my knitting time. It's very rude. I have kind of stepped up my clinical work a little bit more, and I've been doing a bit more women's health, and really enjoying that. So that side of my brain is very happy, but my hands are feeling like they need some more knitting time. But anyway, I think I'm getting through more than enough. I have a handful of finished objects to show you, and I'll tell you about how I went in the show. I have some whips that I can't really tell you about because one of them is a secret test knit, but I can show you the yarn. And I have a lot of acquisitions, but hopefully some of them have plans so they won't stay in the stash for too long. First though, I wanted to show you what I am wearing. So this is the framed sweater by Andrea Mowry. And the reason it qualifies for an Australian knit is I made this using a whole heap of like single yarns that were all Australian that I had collected in my stash that I had no plans for because they're all just single skeins, similar but not the same, and I really needed kind of a way to use them together, and I thought colour work was going to be a really good option. So what I did is, well, let me tell you a little bit more about the construction. So this is a bottom up sweater. I know some of you feel very itchy about bottom up, but it's fine. A bottom up construction where you do colour work in the round and then you do colour work back and forth, which is a little bit of a hard time anyway. And then like this amazing construction on the sleeves with my absolute favorite 3-needle bind off. Let me just adjust that so you're not listening to my earring hit the microphone the whole time. That would be really obnoxious. Back to the sweater, Sally. So 3-needle bind off, just the most delightful little construction detail. And then you knit the sleeves back in the round again, which is a nice relief. I knit the size 3, and I have discovered from Andrea Mowry's patterns that I think she's quite petite but also short, and I have quite a long torso and long arms, so I did an extra repeat compared to what the pattern recommended, which worked well for me. I've got, you know, sort of 7/8 sleeves, which I think works fine. But what I wanted to do with this, so this is a worsted weight gauge, and the yarn she uses is a worsted weight yarn. I really didn't have anything like that, but from my experience holding 2 fingerings together, even though I know 4 and a 4 makes 8, realistically, once they fluff up a little bit or expand with blocking, then they are a bit more like a 10 ply or a worsted weight. So I decided to use a selection of 2 fingering weights, and this is where my ramble about my various stash yarns comes in. So what I did was I had these beautiful kind of rosy goldy pink skeins. One was from they used to be called Natural Yarn Co. She's now rebranded to Gather Make Give. Alyssa, I'm sorry if I get that wrong. And I had a singles skein of Mo Yarn Co., who at the time had stopped dyeing, but I think she's recently restarted. So I held those 2 together for the majority of this, and I think it has worked really beautifully. You can see a slight variation with some little yellow pops, and that's from the Natural Yarn Co.'s colour, or Gather Make Give's colour. And then I contrasted it with, again, another random singles that I'd had from Skein Yarn, another great Australian dyer, and this really dark maroon, which I don't even know how I got it, because it's really not my typical palette, from WA Styles, who is I think a relatively new dyer from Western Australia, whose sister is Natural Fibre Arts. So I thought this is a great opportunity to have 2 sets of colours that are similar-ish, and use them. And because Andrea used a kind of variegated colour changing yarn, not a variegated, a colour changing yarn in hers, and you could see how beautifully that moved, I thought that that would work really well with this, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's not too thick, even though I did hold kind of two fingering weights together. I mean, Wagga gets quite cold, and it's something that I would just throw on over the top of a much lighter layer, or with just a simple singlet or something underneath. So I find it quite manageable. I absolutely love the drop shoulder, and then the 3 needle bind off. I can't remember what this is. It was just some random stash yarn that I had, that I did for the cuffs and the for the neck there. I used 530 grams in total, and just changed the yarn wherever it ran out. When I got to the sleeves though, I made sure I actually halved the yarn, and had little balls, and made sure that I would have an equal kind of colour change range for each sleeve, and that worked really well. The reason I was inspired to wear this was I was watching the delightful pair who are our Stitching Chronicles, Sarah and Kendall was wearing hers, and I thought, oh yes, I forgot how much I loved that jumper, even though it was a lot of work, stranded colour work. I was, I had 4 balls on the go at once, purling colour work, back and forth. And I was like, oh, I need to wear mine because it was beautiful, and I was really pleased with how it turned out. So that is what I'm wearing, in all of its rambling glory, but beautiful pattern. I think if I was to make it again, I would just make it a bit longer, add some more repeats. I'm quite pleased with the overall size, like the size 3 I think fits me quite nicely. I think I sized down with the needles just a smidge, and which is quite typical for me. I usually need to go down for most people's because I'm quite a loose knitter, so that worked really well. Happy with the final fabric. So there we go. Now let me get on to the latest finished objects. So as I mentioned, there's been a bit of a gap between episodes, a bit of a longer gap I should say. And that's because we had the Wagga show a couple of weeks ago, and then I had to pick up everything afterwards. So I entered a lot into there. I came away with champion knitted and hand spun project and a first for my step-by-step cardigan. I'm sure you're all sick of me talking about that, but I was very proud and very pleased to see that others thought that it was worth awarding prizes to as well. I ended up with 4 firsts, 4 seconds, and a highly commended. One of the, I think that I had one entry that didn't win anything. I almost think they might have disqualified it, which was my snaggletooth shawl, and I don't know why it didn't win anything, because because there was only a second place awarded in the class, like there was no first place. I entered it into the odds and ends class because I'd used the remnants of my black wattle yarn to make that, and the only criteria was it had to be under 100 grams, and I think mine was 85, and anyway, I think they didn't feel like it fitted the brief, perhaps, so it didn't win anything, which was a bit sad. But anyway, otherwise stoked with how I went, and let me show you a couple of things that I was working on last time that I entered. So first one is, I think I'll leave my ugly teapot for next. So first one is something that I just absolutely adored and flew through. So this is my son's Storm Sweater Junior by Petite Knit. I knit the size 5 to 6, used the recommended needles, which was 4mm, and used an Australian yarn, well, an Australian merino, it's very much made in China, that I got from Spotlight, which is our local big box kind of yarn store. It was incredibly affordable. It was fine to knit with. There was nothing special, absolutely, but this is for, you know, a 6-year-old boy who loves to get dirty. So as a process knitter, I enjoyed the process, and if something happens to the project, I'd actually gladly make another one. So I'm not too worried about the final intentions of this jumper, but let me show you. So the reason this is so addictive is step 1, you do the back panel, then you do the front panels, and then you join in the round, and it's really engaging because you've just constantly getting into the swing of a new pattern, then you're like, oh, surprise, new thing, and so it's like you just want to get on to the next one. Sorry, Pearl, my cat, is being a little rat. She loves to steal my yarn, so if you hear some crinkling, that's just her. Hopefully I won't have to duck off and use my mum voice. Anyway, back to the sweater. So then you do it's quite a dropped shoulder construction, and so the sleeves actually don't take very long because there's such a significant portion. So if you imagine the shoulders sitting there, you've got such a significant portion that's already done from the body for the sleeve. Again, you actually don't do the same pattern on the way down. It's a little bit different, but you're already familiar with how like the stitches are going to work together. So again, you just fly through this. I didn't mention the yarn I used is an 8-ply or a DK weight. So lovely and chunky, well, for what I usually work with. And I think that's why I was able to make it in a week. I entered this into the state competition component of the Wagga show, where you have to enter 3 items, and this one a second. The first prize was my fruit tingle shawl. So it was really, I was quite proud that they both did so well. But yes, highly recommend if you don't like cables, want a really engaging, like addictive knit that is in a decent gauge for a child. This is a beautiful, beautiful pattern, great construction. Loved it. I just think I'm a little bit crazy for making white for a 6-year-old boy. But anyway, as I said, I don't mind if I have to make another one because I really enjoyed that. Okay, the part I'm sure you've all been waiting for is the ugly teapot. Tea cozy. Here we go. Can you see her? Can you see her? Now, you may remember from last time, I was super excited about this. I had rediscovered tea cozies and how much I love them and how much of a genius Loani Pryor is. I still stand by all of those things. I just think I went a little bit rogue with my colours, and my brain can only see this as ugly. Some people have very kindly told me that it is not. Thank you. It's not going to change my brain's interpretation of this grungy mess. But anyway, let me talk to you about it because it won first prize. Yes, it won first prize. I have no idea what I'm doing. So this was supposed to be the Hawaiian Beauty tea cozy by Loani Pryor, an amazing Australian tea cozy designer. And if you're wanting to learn some techniques and are too worried about how big a sweater is, too nervous about how tiny socks are, tea cozies are great. You can do, like I've done a little picot edge there. I've done, circular knitting. You practice your increases, and knitting flat, joining in the round, like adding stitches with like a cable cast on method to join things in the round. Really great for technique, and they're small, or depending on the size of your teapot, but they're generally quite snappy little projects with lots of changes. There's just a bit of sewing. So she used maybe a Zow ball, anyway, a color changing yarn, and I didn't have any easy access to that. So I found, let's have a look, this yarn at my local Spotlight, which is a Vero Moda Bluebird wool blend, and it's a 70% wool, 30% soybean. In my last episode, I talked about how I touched the texture was like, didn't know how I was going to go. My brain struggled with the texture the whole way. Thank you, Caitlin, for your very clever comment to say, consider when you're using things that are going to be exposed to heat that they are like heat suitable. This certainly was. I think I thought that this was actually an acrylic yarn. Very much not acrylic, it's wool and soybean, but so it was fine for its intended use, but just not great. But anyway, so it's got pink and orange and brown and a green in it. And I thought I can, pick apart the colours and make that work for this tea cozy, because that's kind of what Loani talks you through. How to manipulate the colours and pick out different bits and pieces for the different components. So what you do is you create a little pillbox hat. Isn't it cute? And then you create like the body, and it's split. I probably could have done it a little bit longer. And then she made, on her sample, she's got these beautiful, almost hibiscus-like flowers, but each petal, you had to knit each petal individually, and I didn't have time and I didn't have the patience to do that over again. And honestly, the sensory feel of this texture is just not great, so I wanted to speed up the process if I could, so I could get it done and get it entered. And so I decided to crochet some flowers, and that's what these disastrous blobs are on here. Some little flowers. The reason I called it the Ugly Teapot Cozy is when I look at it, so I thought it was fine as the individual orangey brown, fine with the greeny pink, but then when I've put the flowers on, all my brain can see is brown and like dirty swamp brown. That's all my eyes can see. And you know, it is I guess sweet, but I can't get past it. I think if I removed that gigantic blob, maybe I could unsee it a little bit because we'd get rid of some green and it would just have the reds. But this is absolutely not the fault of Loani. I went rogue and my brain is clearly a little skew-whiff, and that is why I've been calling it the Ugly Tea Cozy. So clearly some people out there like it. Clearly the judges thought it was good because it won a first prize. I do want to put tea cozies back on the list of things to make again, but I just need to recover from this and never use this yarn again. Anyway, it did only use 50 grams, which was amazing considering how much I kind of did. But yeah, I'm not going to be reaching for soybean wool blends anytime soon. So that my lovely, allegedly, Hawaiian tea cozy. I'm going to count this as a finished object because, like, super proud. I made a sock. I have made socks before, but as I've probably mentioned 1 or 1,000 times, I'm a loose knitter, and trying to get adequate gauge on a fingering weight sock, which is my preferred yarn weight of choice, means that I'm knitting with at least 2.25mm needles in magic loop, which is fine, but my hands get cramped. Typically that's not even enough. Like I probably need to find an even smaller needle because it's just too loose. I'm just a loose goose. And so I got all excited last episode because I wanted to dive into DK socks. So I did, because I had beautiful yarn too that I needed to use. There was self-striping and everything. So ta-da! I'm getting this as a finished object even though I still need to make the second one. But honestly, that's going to take me 5 minutes. And once I've done some other bigger projects, I will just fly through this. So this is a take on the on Summerlee socks DK sock meets the Forethought heel. So what I did was, because this is a self-striping yarn, I knitted my little tube. Then, rather than an afterthought heel where you knit a tube and then you go back and cut in the stitches where you, and pull out that string where you want to put your heel flap, so then you get a nice continuous essentially tube of your self-striping yarn. You actually so you knit to where you want it to go on the top of the foot, then you cut your yarn, then you knit with another like scrap yarn, and then you come back and then you rejoin where you wanted to continue in the round, and then you make your next little tube. So DK yarn, DK sock yarn, and basically just making a gigantic tube. This was really eye-opening for me to think about. I've been very stuck with my gauge issues and making socks, and I wonder whether or not, so this gave me the idea about, rather than going, okay, well, Sally, you've got a medium-sized foot, you need to make the medium size. Why not think about it like, oh, have a look at the stitch count for the small size, but you know your gauge is going to be bigger, so then play around with that, and then it will just be the fluff around the heel, and you know, and the toe that you need to figure out. It just kind of helped me understand the construction of socks a little bit more when you start to think about it in a tube, and then fancy bit here. So that was really good. Really enjoyed that. I did a 48 stitch round, which I think might be her large size. Don't quote me, but anyway, it worked for me. This fits really nicely. Yes, it is a thick sock, but that's fine. I'm on my sock journey. If you don't remember from last time, this is the DK self-striping sock from Halfbaked Handdyed, who I'd been desperately trying to get some of, and discovered that the Yarn Inn, which is a Tasmanian wool store, had some in stock in various colorways. This one is called K. So I did top down tube, Forethought heel, kept tubing, then did my, your usual little Kitchener stitch there. And can I show you, because again, things that I don't know why my brain can't handle, but Kitchener stitch is just not something that my brain likes to do, or it gets overly it just kind of, I think, loses concentration and thinks, oh, that's good enough, or that's where I'm up to with the back or forth or whatever I'm supposed to be doing, and then it's just never right. But I did a beautiful job on the toe this time. Let me see, instead of my face, look at my toe. Like, I'm just look at my toe. Anyway, there we go. That was a lot of effort for you to look at the toe of a sock. Anyway, I'm really pleased with it. Her instructions were just really good. They're probably the same instructions everyone gives, but clearly I was in the mind space of this was just working for me. And then I went back and picked up the stitches and then just did the little decreases, and again a Kitchener stitch to graft those two sides together. Don't think it'll take me too long at all to make another one. I think this took me a day or two, super fast, just a tube, DK weight, amazing. And I made sure I split the yarn into 250 gram balls, so I knew how much I would have left, and all I've got left of this sock is just a purple or a maroon stripe. So I think that's going to be really good, and at least I know exactly what I'm in for the second sock. So counting it as a finished object, I guess it's kind of a whip, but because there's another one to make, but here we are. Now, I have also finished an Ebba by Sari Nautilin, but I couldn't find any way to link it to Australian things, and as you know, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to talk about either Australian yarn or fibre or an Australian designer, and I just couldn't. But it's so beautiful, so I have been sharing it on my Instagram stories, but I don't think I can share it here anyway. So that has been taking up a lot of time. Really enjoying getting back into lace knitting. That's just a lovely rhythm. So I finished that. Now I'm going to make the skirt. I signed up for a secret test knit because who am I? A crazy person who has nowhere near enough time, but here we are. It's great. It's another pattern that changes all the time, so it's very engaging. I can't tell you really anything about it, but I did have yarn arrive for it, which was a pure coincidence, and means that it arrived a lot earlier than I anticipated, so I was able to kind of get that into this secret test knit, and it's working out beautifully. So if you ordered a Circus Tonic handmade advent for 2025 and you don't want to see what the colors are looking like, just skip ahead a little bit, because I'm going to show you mine, because she sent them out really early, and they were just perfect for the secret test knit that I'm going to do. So I've got 2 colours already in use, which are oranges, but I'll show you the rest. This year, Hannah offered a 12 colour 50 gram demi skein, I think people are calling them, option with a super pared back advent or holiday box. And I didn't know what the colours are, and that I find that's one of the fun things about this. Came in a lovely lovely canvas bag. So Tonic Handmade is another quite prolific Australian designer. And let me get these colours out for you. So they're really beautiful, just like gorgeous pastel-y colours. And look at these, aren't they just divine? Like, look at that. There are 2 missing, as I said. They are kind of darker versions of that orange. So there's like a yellow fade and an orange fade, but 2 are missing because they're already in use. But aren't they beautiful? So this is the fingering weight sock yarn. They're Jubilee sock, 75% merino, 25% nylon, with 212 meters in 50 grams. So that's really good yardage for actually being able to do things with it. So yeah, love. Considering I didn't know what colors I was getting, like these pastels are just beautiful. And it forces me to use colors that I wouldn't normally as well. So I don't think I ever buy orange. Definitely don't intentionally buy yellow. Purples, sometimes I go a little rogue, but it's typically pinks and blues. So this is a great way of me experimenting with colors. So love that. Now, more acquisitions. Look at me go. If you follow me on Instagram, which you should, Society Knits is the name, I went on a little road trip with my family, and we just stopped into a few different spots. One of them was in Narrandera, and it was a kind of like antique, upcycled, bit of everything store, which was fun to kind of meander through. I bought a spinning wheel after I have always talked about how much I love my electric one because I can easily pack it away. I bought an upright dual drive wheel that I think was probably handmade. I can't see any stamps, and I've inquired with some of the Facebook groups and no one is able to identify it for me, but it needs some love. So when I get 5 minutes, I will look into just giving it a bit of reconditioning. I'll need to find some more bobbins, but I think it will be a good option to see if I can work on a little bit more of my spinning techniques and things with a manual wheel instead of electric. So that'll be fun. Yeah, it was beautiful. But so they randomly had a spinning wheel, and then they also had yarn. So there's a lady who's been dyeing like hand dyeing yarn there locally. Her name is Fred and Pepper, and I think at the moment she's making like felted bunting, little name tag things, garlands. I'm sure there's a better technical term for the thing she's making, but she's not primarily a hand dyer. But I saw these colours, and this was just after Stone Knits, who makes incredible colourwork patterns, but specifically socks, released, like she was having a big sale, and she had the, I'm gonna get the name wrong. I want to say like the chicken and the hen set. Anyway, they're just the most divine little chook socks, and I thought, Sally, you have the SK Scrapalong, the Society Knits Scrapalong starting in October that you host. stay tuned for that. I'll have another video. Side note, colour work and minis are perfect for that. So I thought maybe these could go into a pair of socks like that. These are all fingering weight sock yarns. The colours, I don't think they have any specific colours, just some instructions on how to look after them. But I figure, you know, you can't go too wrong with minis. And I also thought colour work, because for most people it will draw the yarn, like the yarn tension in, might also be another way that I can tighten up my socks a little bit. So stay tuned for those. But yeah, so some cute little minis, and then this beautiful blue, and I think maybe they might be some chook socks, but I've also got so many ideas for minis. Wait and see. The final couple of things, again, I just wander into places. I wandered into our local bookstore because we still have one. Isn't that amazing? And I was absolutely blown away to see that we had this book. Now, Helen Aronson is better known as Fable Knitwear on Instagram and Ravelry, and she does just the most beautiful vintage styled knitwear. Often there's very big dramatic sleeves or these very ethereal kind of light lacy kind of garments, and they're just exquisite to look at. She's got a very specific vintage style. And I have made her Sailor Breton earlier in the year, and look, the pattern was pretty sparse. It was fine. I am a reasonably experienced knitter, so I did figure it out. And so after that experience, I was a bit loath to kind of delve into any more of her patterns because I just felt like it was a bit vague. And anyway, I saw this though, and I had been contemplating buying it previously, and then I thought, it's a sign. If this book is in Wagga, in rural Australia, it's meant to be. This is your sign, Sally, you have to buy it. So I did, and I've actually flicked through, and I've already like started making plans for so many things. Specifically, I have this great chunky mohair from the Knitting Man Recommends. Karen is an incredibly vibrant dyer. She's a great palette. And I got this like ballerina pink fluff from her a little while ago, and I made a gorgeous cardigan that I might wear on one of these episodes soon. Anyway, it had such generous yardage that I've still got a decent amount left over, and so I think I have plans for this, so that's how I'll link it to an Australian route and be able to share it with you, so that'll be super exciting. And then I have been enjoying Katie Parrott Makes podcast. She was talking about one of her recent acquisitions, and it was this book, Making Happy Things. I had needed a bit of a dopamine hit recently, and I thought, well, that just screams it, doesn't it? Look at this book, Making Happy Things. And it really sings to my need for upcycling, minimizing waste, using up stuff. And there's lots of scrappy projects, or, you know, turning non-fabric standard things like tea towels into garments or fun things to wear, and it's really modular, and I think this is going to be really fun. That brings me to my next thing that I mentioned in passing I am super passionate, as you may or may not have picked up on, about the Australian wool industry. Alongside that, I also really try to focus on reusing, repurposing, minimizing waste. And so like the project bags that I sell, which I know I'm terrible at updating on the store, are used from scraps from my mother-in-law's quilting. I at one stage was doing some like recycled yarn that I'd repurposed, and each year since I've started Society Knits as a business, have been hosting the Society Knits Scrapalong. It goes from the 1st of October to the 30th of November. There are super loosey-goosey criteria to be involved, and it's hosted on Instagram, but basically use things that use up minis, use up your scraps. That can be crochet, that can be knitting, it can be sewing. I don't care. I just want to see what you make with things that, you know, previously didn't have a purpose and weren't a sweater quantity of things made all in the same color. I'm going to do a separate video, so stay tuned for that, for the things that I'm going to be making. But if you look at the hashtag SKScrapalong on Instagram, you'll get some great inspiration. There's prizes, and it's a great way to use up stuff and turn it into gift knitting, because that's kind of that, you know, lead up to Christmas time. So thank you all for tuning in. I would love to know what you're working on, what you've been knitting on. Thanks for sticking around for such a long episode. Depending on what my life is like, I may or may not be tuning in as frequently as I hoped, but we shall see. I would love it if you would like and subscribe. I'm going to have a giveaway at 500 subscribers, so please help me get there. And I hope you have a lovely springtime or autumn knitting session over the next little while. And until I see you then, bye.